Welcome to Built with Grit. I am your host and strategic partner in cost reduction. And today I'm joined with my friend Taylor of Diesel Laptop, or Tyler, sorry, of Diesel Laptops. And he's got a really interesting story coming from his kitchen table to now a large factory, and they keep growing. And I'm excited to have him on today to tell us the story. Tyler, how you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. And I have to tell you too, my wife's grandmother, she still calls me Taylor. It's been like 20 years and I still get it. So it happens all the time, man. Don't even feel bad.
It's not a great way to start though, man. I mean, dang.
Oh, that's all right. We just keep rolling with things
All
around
right.
here. Like everything else, right? That's entrepreneurship. Just roll with it.
Yeah, we just keep. There's no moving backwards. You got to just keep going forward. We keep tripping forward on this thing. So why don't we start with, like, you can tell us a little bit about Diesel, and then we could talk about your journey and how you got to each of these massive steps that you made a post the other day, and I saw like the different photos of the facilities, and it was like year over year, just this massive growth. So very excited. So let's start with how you got this thing going.
Yeah. So, I've been around commercial trucks and equipment forever. So, I literally grew up in a gravel pit. My grandfather started a gravel pit and he built his house there. And then my dad bought that house from him. And that's where I grew up. So I literally grew up inside a gravel pit. So I was around equipment and machinery forever. And I went to college. I actually got kicked out of college because I never went to class. And if you don't go to class, you don't pass and they kick you out. So I learned that. And then my family, they're entrepreneurs themselves and business owners, and they started a truck dealership. And I joke, like, my dad had a hard time. He hates it when I say this, but if there's 100 ways to lose money owning a truck dealership, which is like car dealerships, but the heavy trucks, they found 101. So through that all, I fell in love with the business though. And I had an opportunity to stay with the company. They sold their company too. And then that company fired me a year later. And then I went to work for their competitor, and around we went, and all those things. So that's how I kind of got involved in trucks and in truck dealerships. And through that process, it's pretty cool. You learn when you work inside a truck dealership, you learn what problems people have. And I can tell you this, it's like a car dealership. Nobody really goes there because they're happy with what they got going on. Right? Right? They don't like their car. It's broke down. They need a part. They're never really excited to go there. And truck dealerships are the same way, but people got to keep in mind the big distinction with trucks. It's a tool to make money with, right? It's not a luxury to drive around. This is how they make money. And when your truck's down, and I worked in service. That's where I really got started with most of my work. When you're in service and trucks are down, it's $1,000 a day that those guys are losing, right? So, and it's not like they can just go find another truck. A lot of my bodies and equipment on them, or trailers that are loaded, and all these other things that happen.
Yep.
You start hearing problems. And the problem I had when I was in the service department, people would roll in. My shop's booked up for 2-3 weeks. I had 25 technicians. We couldn't keep up. People would roll in and be like, "Hey, I got my check engine light on." Be like, "Great, take a number, get in line. We'll look at it in 2 weeks." And that's the way most truck dealerships are still ran. And it's horrible. Shops love it. Dealerships love it. They're busy. They can queue up their work. They can be efficient. Yeah. The customers hate it. And what I did is I didn't like it either. I thought it was really crappy customer service. So when I was service manager, I said, you know what? I'll go out there with my laptop, with the shop laptop. We'll hook up. We'll tell you what's wrong with it. We'll tell you if you need to keep it, or if you just can make an appointment and come back for it. Well, you do that for a customer once or twice, and soon they start to say, well, how do I buy one of those tools? Right? Like, I don't want to have to come here. Right. And we just would say, no, you can't have it. That's why you have to come here to us. Right. That's why we're a dealership. That's why we have this territory. We're the only ones that can have this. And then that was the way we rolled. And then I was either doing a really good job or a really bad job for this dealership. And they said, we want to move you to be the store manager. And in the meantime, 2008 happened, the market crashed. And the manager came to me one day and said, the general manager was like, well, bad news. I have my money in stocks. I can't retire. I lost, half of what I had in retirement. So in the meantime, take this parts manager position. So they moved me over to the parts department. And the interesting thing, the parts department is same store, same building. I reported to a different person. In that regard, the parts director I reported to said, if you can make money selling something, sell it. I don't care if it's a truck part. I don't care if it's a cheeseburger. I don't care if it's a diagnostic tool. If you can make margin, do it. So we started selling diagnostic tools in the parts department. And, once customers found out they actually could buy it now, The shop hated it. The parts guy loved it.
Yeah.
We start selling these tools, and then you start realizing more problems. Now I'm selling diagnostic software and hardware to a 55-year-old shop owner that just wants to fix his truck. He doesn't know how to pair Bluetooth devices. He doesn't know how to update firmware. He doesn't even know how to install and license software.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of where it got started. Was like, man, I'm going to install software for people, and I'm going to make prepackaged kits. I'm going to sell them back to my own company, which then can sell them to the customer. And I'm just going to make some margin off this whole thing in the middle. So really got started was just listening to customers. They had a problem. They were begging for solutions. And I was like, I'm going to come up with a solution to fill this gap. And that's where Diesel Laptop got started. And I was doing that part-time about 10 years ago. So it was rolling that way for a while.
I think, if you haven't been in that industry to understand, I mean, what you just said about $1,000 a day in this 2-week backlog. So I was a service manager at a heavy machinery dealership. But most of the equipment we're talking, I guess the smallest stuff we dealt with was backhoes and skid steers up to large mining trucks that were literally the size of a house. Right.
Yep.
And they're like the dollars per hour lost from not having one of these machines running, it'll just blow your mind. And then to think, if you call a service department to come out to look at your vehicle,
yep,
you're paying travel fees and then $150, $175 per hour, with a minimum 1 hour plus travel time charge.
Oh, from when they left their place to when they get back, right?
Exactly.
And that's if they can get to you right away. So my dad, he's got mining operations. It's not like they have spare generators and gravel trucks and excavators and wash plants sitting around.
No,
like one piece of equipment goes, the whole thing shuts down.
Yep.
And yeah, so we got into equipment stuff pretty quick, and that was a huge growth thing for us. And you hit it right. It's worse. You can't go haul out a big, big, huge dump truck, and bring a replacement in. It's there waiting on parts and diagnostics, and it got really complicated really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's not having spare. Each of these pieces of equipment, I mean, they can range from $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to several $1 million a piece.
Yeah. So do you watch the TV show Gold Rush at all?
I have not watched that show. No.
Well, Gold Rush on Discovery Channel, it's about them mining gold up in the Yukon and everything.
Okay.
So we actually sold one to one of the technicians that worked on the show. So we got to go up to the Yukon and see everything. But that's the struggle they have up there is like my truck engine light's on and my truck stopped working, and now we can't haul material and we can't wash gold and we're done.
Right.
So it's a problem all over the place, and there are solutions. We just got to keep getting the word out here at Diesel Laptops that these.
Well, I mean, I can see massive utility in it, and even if it's just to know whether or not I should make that call, right? Because I have been on calls before. Even as a manager, I would go sometimes out on a call just to get that experience, especially if it was a place I hadn't been to before. And we got to this one site, and he had a bunch of lights and stuff that were going on, and the technician opened up the fuse box and saw he had a blown out fuse. And we even asked him, like, you sure you don't have any blown fuses? No, we're checked, we're good. So we drove 3 hours to this location, and then he puts his fuse in that's this big, and that's
99 fuse. Yeah. Probably cost the guy $800
exactly
charges, and probably $10,000 in lost income, right? Like,
and the truck sat there for 6 hours between, however long before they called us and we got somebody. And
the new frontier is actually monitoring the data on the vehicles and the equipment, and call centers involved, and doing remote diagnostics and all that stuff. So it's an expensive problem in our industry, and a lot of solutions that we're doing and other companies are doing to try to fit in that niche. And
that remote stuff isn't cheap either.
No, it's not. But you look at that equipment world, and paying $50 a month to have someone monitor your data and your check engine lights versus the $1,000 bill and 2 days of downtime is probably worth it, right? So,
so let's talk about. So you moved over to the parts department, which, I mean, I'm not sure how exciting that would have been. That would probably be a little disappointing for me to go from service to parts.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't super exciting. And I didn't do it long because I didn't want to be a parts manager the rest of my life. And then the general manager said he's going to retire or couldn't retire. So I'm like, okay, what am I going to do here? And I got lucky. The marketing manager quit and the director of IT retired. So I called up the owner, and this is a couple hundred employee company. I called the owner up. I go, look, I know you think I'm a service manager or a parts manager. Really, I'm not that good at those. And I've been doing a great job for them. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, I'm really much better at this whole IT marketing thing. So I'd like to, I'll tell you what, you can hire one person, hire me instead. You don't have to hire two more people, and I'll do amazing things for you in the marketing and the IT world. So I got moved up to director of IT and marketing for the dealership group I was at, which, you know, a whole new world, a lot more fun, and kind of got me going. And I ended up doing that for a couple of years. And in the meantime, I'm still selling stuff to my own company that I'm working for. I started putting stuff on eBay. I put up my own website, and I'm starting to sell more and more of this stuff out there. And then one day the owner's daughter comes to me and says, "Oh, Tyler, you know, good news. You know, we're going to double your bonus this year and give you a raise." I'm like, well, that's out of the blue. We just had reviews and raises. Like, what's going on? She's like, you need to quit your side business. And I'm like, oh, what if I don't? She's like, well, then you need to resign or we'll have to fire you. I'm like, okay. So I talked to my dad. I talked to some other people. They're like, man, your wife doesn't work. You got a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old. You're the only breadwinner. You get a paycheck every couple of weeks. Like, just shut the side business down. And then I went home and talked to the wife, and she said, you know what? We have no debt. You're a smart guy. You'll figure it out if things don't work out here. So let's give it a try and see what happens. And that was 6 years ago. And, you know, now here we are, almost 200 employees, and we do north of 50 million a year in revenue at this point. So it went really big, you know, very quickly.
That's awesome. I had a similar conversation myself with mine. So, and I made a similar decision as well. I got 3 little ones. So, but they're a little bit over 11, 9, and 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, you don't have a choice, right? I joke with my dad. It's like, we jumped out of the airplane, you know? So the parachute has to open, or I pull the reserve or something, but I can't get back in the plane. Like, that thing's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I always look back at it now. I'm like, man, I got 10 years of paid training. I worked at a dealership for all those things. So that worked out well for me, and we had no debt. So me and my wife, we had money saved up. We were smart with what we did. And we were like, you know what, we got a little time here. Let's see if we can make this thing happen. So it worked out well in hindsight.
So I often talk about business growth. It's kind of, you know, some folks see this slope, right? Because you talk about, you know, you went from one step to the next, and then and you got to this. It almost looks like there's this slope, but it's more of like you're sloping growth, and then there's these big jumps, right? Because your big jump is going full time, right? And then hiring the first employee, and then you hire only for operations, and then you have to hire non-operations folks, which is another emotional event of, I need that CFO. So talk to us a little bit about the, you know, when you recognize, like, I'm at one of these inflection points of, you know, I got to blow this thing up, and I got to buy a building, and I got to grow a bigger building. Like, talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, I'll preface it by saying this. I never intended for any of this. I intended just like hang out by the pool with my kids. I go for walks every morning and, you know, eat lunch. I mean, they were little, right? Like, oh, we're going to, and I always tell people, I tried it one day, and I can't, I got too much work to do. I can't do this. So, I will say this though. I made my wife a promise. I go, I will stop working at 4:00. So I still do that today, even though everything's here. I still got kids and a family and all that. But yeah, I remember we're in my garage. I'm in my dining room table, and I couldn't keep up with the phones, tech support, sales, putting kits together, fulfilling orders. So there was a kid in my neighborhood. His name's Riley. He literally had just graduated high school. He's like going to community college. He's working at the pizza parlor place, right? Making pizzas and subs. And I was like, I just need help. And my wife knew his mom from like the neighborhood book club. So, you know, little Riley came over and started like packaging stuff up. And he was our first employee. And today he's actually our director of operations. Like he's like my right-hand man around here. He does very well for himself. Dude's gonna be a millionaire one day. He's just smart as all get out. Like, awesome. Love having people like Riley around here. And that was the first one. And then that gave me a little bit more time, but then all of a sudden I'm like running out of the room in my garage, and dining room tables full, and vendors are wanting to stop by the house to come talk to me. And, you know, all these customers are Googling my address, and it's my house. I'm like, okay, I got to legitimize this. And what happened was there was a big power company, that actually owned nuclear power plants that wanted to buy our diagnostic tools. And I was like, okay, I can't, we got to go through some certain things here to make this deal happen. And having an address of my house probably doesn't look the best here to make this thing happen. So, so we went and rented our first place, and it was a really crappy place. It was the back of an old photography studio. So you can imagine walking in a room, and it kind of was like painted in 4 corners. Like one corner was where they used to take like the old West photos. The other corner was they had like a bathtub set up where they did like the bath, like the shower stuff. It was that setup. The only bathroom in that building, you had to there was the main area, then you could walk into my office and you could walk into the bathroom. So anytime an employee wanted to use the bathroom, they had to go through my office. So that was a lot of jokes about that. But we just we didn't have an HR department. We didn't know anything. I was just like, I just need help. But literally, like the first person that would show up for an interview, we'd hire just so we could get the next person, right? Like, great, get them. Let's go back to work. So we had a lot of misfires in those first couple employees.
I had this imagination in my head of like the Step Brothers, when they go to the interview in the tuxedos. Have you seen that one?
Yes. It was pretty much like literally, oh my God, there was so many things that just like make a HR person cringe, but we didn't know. We're just like, I just need bodies. Give me bodies here let's figure this out. But thankfully we had a great product and people kept buying it. And but you're right, as you scale, things don't all scale at the same time. So sales was skyrocketing, going to the moon, right? And my tech support was not. And there was a point where like 100% of phone calls into tech support for issues went to voicemail, just because we didn't have enough. We couldn't scale it up quick enough. We didn't even know we had a problem until we were like, what's that blinking light mean? Right. And like, oh, nobody checks the voicemails. Okay. That's not good. And we went through in a lot of departments. Even I remember at sales at one time, we just didn't scale it up fast enough. And literally I'm spending 6 figures a month advertising on Google and Facebook, because we do almost all online marketing. And our salespeople were only answering the phone like half the time. The rest were going to voicemail. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Why we spend all this money? We can't even pick up the phone to take care of a customer. Wow. So it's just, it's like that time and time again. And those things still happen even at the size we're at now. It's constant reevaluation of, okay, here's the process. Let's measure these things. Oh, that doesn't look good. How do we fix that? And it just, it's more complicated the bigger you get, but we're figuring it out. We always say we're still trying to figure out how to be adults around here. So we're getting there.
It's not that glamorous, man.
No, it's, I keep like even today, right? So we're this company, almost 200 employees, 50 million in revenue. And I go on our website one day and our website chat, I click it. I'm like, oh, I haven't checked this out. And when I chat it, I go there, click it, and it like, okay, enter your name, your email, your phone number, your city, your state. I'm like, to chat? Like, what the, like, what are we doing? So I go talk to the people like, well, that's because our CRM, it's all tied in. It needs to like tie in there. I'm like, guys, like you can't make customers jump through hoops just to have a sales conversation with you. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But even little things like that. I mean, we just changed that last month and we went from 200 chats a month to 600 all of a sudden, which
wow.
Like, right. Like, wow, they can actually chat with us now without having to give all the personal information. Who would have thought? But then, then sales like, well, how do we don't have enough people to manage all these chat sessions all day long. Like, it's like that in business though. You just have one thing, you just can't peel that onion back and you got to measure things and see where they're at. So, anyone that's growing their business, I'm sure there's plenty of rocks to kick over to go find things to improve your business.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. Did you focus on the Google online? Like, was that always like your idea of this is where I'm going to generate my revenue from?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a background in IT and in marketing and everything. And, I've been more tech savvy than most. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do one thing every week to help my SEO. And that was my goal every week from the day I started the company. And it was like, hey, I'm going to go optimize a page. I'm going to go create a blog post on a specific keyword. I'm going to make a YouTube video. I'm going to go get some backlinks with some good backlinks, not junky, spammy ones. I'm going to do one thing every week. And I remember like YouTube, for example, I remember just going out there with my phone, like holding it in one hand and running the computer on the other and just talking about what I'm doing on the truck. And those were some pretty crappy videos, but you look back at them now, they have hundreds of thousands of views. And our YouTube channel, although we have some better quality content today, we got over 7 million views on it. Wow. And it really helped because we spent some time making some content. It pays for itself forever. And it got rid of a lot of the sales objections because customers used to call in and be like, oh, hey, how well does your tool work on a cat, C15? Can it do an injector programming event? And be like, yeah, I can do it. Like, well, I want to see it. Can you do a demo? We're like, well, no, we're not driving all the way out to God knows where you are. Like, I can't cover the whole US. We tried it. It sucked. So we just said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a YouTube video on everything, the common things people ask for. And say, well, how well does it work? We're gonna be like, oh, here's a video on that, and just send it to them.
Right.
So it was that, and now we have really good domain authority. I mean, we outrank Amazon and eBay and a lot of those other people that are out there for a lot of things. And it's just still like we always preach to our people: content, and let's just keep pumping it out there and do all the things we need to do, and it'll keep growing. And even now, our organic traffic still grows on our website. So it's just you got to keep you. I don't care what your business is. I don't care if it's you own a bakery or you have a construction company or what it is. The fact is there's two places you need to be: the most visited site on the internet, which is Google; the second most visited site on the internet, which is YouTube. Be on those places. Make sure people can find you.
Yeah, no, I think that you cannot. Okay, I've got too many thoughts in my head. And so that's where I'm running into a problem here. But so first is that I have worked in marketing for Fortune 100, and a lot of the senior leaders do not understand the current makeup of the world, right? They grew up in marketing in the 90s and early 2000s. Today is different, and you have to be present in all of these different locations to find those customers that you're looking for, and you have to be personal. And I think that's the other part that folks don't like. Yes, I understand you want your brand, but you have to have some sort of personal connection. Elon Musk makes a tweet. Tesla makes the same tweet. The Elon one is the one that people are going to engage with because they want to know that individual. And that's what people care about is individual stories.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on LinkedIn. I've been posting consistently on there pretty much since I started Diesel Laptops. And I was going to go look back and see how many views my first post got. I'm sure it was 1 or 0. But I mean, today, I've had posts go over 100,000 views, and mine consistently go 10 to 20,000. And it's all, I think, been exactly what you're saying, just being real and authentic. And for me, that's who I am, right? I'm just real, authentic. I'm transparent, and half the time it's like, this is all the bad stuff going on over at Diesel Laptops. A lot of times like, here's all the great stuff going on. And in fact is that's just business. I think, a lot of social media is just all the glitz and glam, but I try to sprinkle in a bunch of the struggles that we have as a business. And LinkedIn's been a huge part of, us networking out there in our niche.
It's so valuable as a platform. Like, I know Facebook has become very saturated in a place, and also the mentality of people when they're on that platform, at least in my world, I'm in a B2B world. Like, I don't necessarily want to talk to them when they're in that mindset. Like, I want to talk to them when they're in that business mindset, when they're on that LinkedIn platform. And the organic reach of LinkedIn is just unbelievable. Where, from my desk and computer, I have also had a few that reach 180,000 views and, getting 20,000 views and getting hundreds of in-mails coming, I'm not going to be able to generate the same thing on any other platform.
No, I always say LinkedIn is where Facebook was like 5 years ago. You could get great reach on Facebook 5 years ago, and things would go all over the place. And then it just strictly turned into pay to play pretty much if you're a business on there. And LinkedIn, I'm like, man, I'm going to get 2 million views this year personally, plus my company page. And I paid $0 for it.
Right.
I'm like, you can't, like, that's the best deal going on. Like, I'm going to ride that horse until it goes away. I was just talking to another guy. He sells equipment, used commercial equipment for agriculture and construction. And I go, how do you sell it? Because he goes, I'm selling all over the world, all over the US. I'm like, wow, what are you doing? You must have a great marketing team. He's like, because they don't do nothing. He goes, I put on Facebook Marketplace. He goes, I have no idea why that's free, but he goes, that thing drives so many leads and businesses to me. And I guess people are buying $100,000 machines on Facebook Marketplace, trying to find the equipment they need, but the guy's doing it. So it's a different world. And I think you said it right. The 90s and 2000s are different, and what's today is working. And I think 3 or 4 years from now, those things probably don't work, and it's something else. And you got to constantly be looking at the next thing.
Yeah. The speed at which marketing is changing is absolutely wild. And we have to stay on top of that, understand those trends, and understand how to get that attention, because you're paying for 5 seconds really on YouTube, right?
Yep.
It's
5 seconds.
You have 5 seconds to convince me to give you another one.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're in a B2B. I mean, let's face it, we're B2B. We're selling diagnostic tools to other businesses. Like, you would think our customers not on social media. They are. You just have to know how to find them.
Yeah.
But we literally hired a social media manager, and like her whole job is basically to engage with people on the platform. And it's to go find influencers and be like, hey, how do we work with you? We have these affiliate things. We do these promotions, these contests. We just want to work with you. And those people are, I mean, they're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook groups, YouTube. You gotta go spend the time and energy to go find those people and get relationships going. It's an important part of everyone's business today, in my belief.
And I'll tell you, in your particular world, like, we know that those people, the first place they're going is to Google, right? Like, and they're trying to describe their problem to the Google search bar because they don't want to have to make that call that they know is going to be $400 or $500, like the moment they pick up that phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we do is we go look at certain things like, like Cummins fault code, Cummins engine manufacturer, if that doesn't know, right? Yeah. So Cummins fault codes, that's one of the most searched terms. And, we're like, okay, we'll go build blog posts. We'll go rank organically for that. We'll go do paid ads for that. Let's just go nail that down and go get that traffic. So a lot of the internet marketing just comes down to like, where's your traffic, and then go get it.
Right. and I think that, I know in a lot of maintenance folks and dealerships that they probably have some apprehension to showing processes of how things are done, because then, well, the customer may try and do it themselves, and then we lose that potential revenue. But honestly, I think part of that is just them realizing I don't want to do that myself, right? Like, if you show me how to change, some brake pads or something, half the time I'd be like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, it does that. And it also tells them that you're the authority, right? If you're the one that did the video, like, you are the guy that knows that. So
exactly.
We give away a ton of free information, repair information, diagnostic tools. Cause I'm like, you know what, if you're using my stuff and you're on my channels, I know when you actually need to buy something you're ready to buy, you're going to think of me first. Yeah. So yeah, I think a lot of people make the mistake of like, I can't give that away. It's too proprietary. That's how I make money. No, just give them a little taste. They'll come to you.
They'll especially come to you for the big jobs, right?
Yeah,
those are the ones that are going to pay the money anyway, right? The small stuff, the oil changes, that kind of thing, like it clogs up the shop because it still takes time. You got to open the work order and pull the machine in and do all that. Clogs up, takes some time. If you're teaching your clients how to do that, and they're coming to you when they need some piston work or something on their engine, right? Then that's going to pay for itself.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we do a similar thing on the software side. So we have a program. We've spent $500,000 in labor costs building this thing out, and we end up giving it away for free. Because I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a huge wide audience network. They're going to be using my software. They're going to see my name. And I know when they need something better, like, we're not going to let them do all the crazy stuff. We'll give them enough to get by. But when they need repair information or people to talk to that know how to fix stuff or better software, I know they're going to come to me first. And I'm getting myself ahead of everybody else. So yeah, you got to sometimes it drives my accounting people crazy, but I love giving stuff away for free. I love getting the traffic, right? And it's been working to this point. So until it stops working, I'm gonna keep doing it.
No, that's awesome. So folks are finding you online and they're coming to you. How do you recognize those points when you're like, all right, like moving from that little building where everybody walked through your office to go use the bathroom to the next facility, the next location? That seems to me like it's probably a pretty emotional event too, because this is a big risk you're taking there. How do you recognize like it's time for that next leap?
Yeah, I mean, so the first time I had to move out of the garage is like, we're just out of space. I need to bring more employees, and the wife's like, no more people in the house, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll get a space. So then we got that space, and then you start putting bodies in there. We need more people to help pack. We need more people in the warehouse. I need someone to help answer sales calls. And then we ran out of room there. So then the guy had some more room in that photography studio. So we kind of took that over. And again, we just kind of kept hiring more people. And, the landlord's like, man, you guys have too many cars here in the parking lot. We're parking on the grass. We're out on the road. Trucks are trying to deliver products. It just wasn't set up. And I'm like, okay, we'll go find a place. And thankfully, when I did the first lease, I just said, I can only guarantee you a year. I have no idea if I'm going to be in business a year from now. If my business is going to grow. Yeah. So he wanted like a 5-year lease. I'm like, I'll give you a year. Like that's all I can guarantee you here. So I left there, and then I was like, okay, now what do I do? That was like, call it 3,000 square feet. Now I need to go double or triple my space here. So what do you do? Do you lease? Do you buy? And I'm like, man, again, if I lease, these guys all want long-term contracts and renovations, and I'm like, I don't know where this thing's going. So I found a place. I think I paid like $700,000 for it. And it was It was good enough. It was like 7,000 square feet. We all went in there, and I remember walking in that day saying, man, this is going to last us for 3 years. No problem. This is huge. And, 8 months later, I'm like, okay, we're out of room again. Parking lot's full. Trucks can't get in. All the same problems, just all over again. And then we ended up selling that one, and we bought one that was about 20,000 square feet. And same thing. I remember walking in, man, this place is huge. Like I could fit 3 of my old buildings in here. This is no problem. And then of course the trajectory just kept going the way it was going. And we were like, man, we're going to run out of space. So, and in the meantime, I had sold the previous building. So I'm like, cool, I'm still doing well here.
Yeah.
And then we went and bought a 40,000 square foot building, and that's where we are today. But even now we're like, okay, parking lot's full, trucks can't get in. What do we do? How are we going to manage this? And with COVID, we got a lot of people working from home still, probably forever. But you still have a warehouse, you got to ship stuff. You still have to have a call center. You have a lot of new employees. When we hire people, they know nothing about commercial trucks. They know nothing about commercial diagnostics. And it's usually their first real job out of college. Right.
Yeah.
So, we have to train them, and how do you train someone in that environment from home away from everybody else? It's almost impossible. So, we're trying to do what we can to not have to buy another building, because all of a sudden you don't go from buying like $700,000 to $1.5 million buildings. Now they're $5 to $8 million moves, and just moving alone cost us $500,000 the last time we did it. So
right.
We're trying to figure it out. So just another problem. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks, when they start reaching that's how you end up with your multi-location, like, okay, well, we'll keep manufacturing operations here, and we're going to move, this sales team over here, that's how that ends up happening. Cause you're right. They're just picking up and moving is not just putting it in boxes anymore.
Well, it's like you're reading my mind. So tomorrow morning, I'm actually looking at 2 other properties in town. So we do diesel technician training, where we actually bring diesel techs in, and we have lab boards set up on how to diagnose hydraulics and after treatment and all these things. Then we have, at this facility, we have a carport where we have semi trucks under, and we're like, okay, if we can just go find a building to do just the training center, then we can take that room and free it up and bring other people in. So yeah, that's kind of the thought process now, is let's just open another building in town. We opened a training center in Dallas last year. That's going well. That's a thing we want to scale up, and just put more training centers across the United States. So
it makes total sense. It makes total sense. And, so having worked in 4 different organizations, and now consulting businesses that are doing that kind of work is definitely like, it becomes kind of cost prohibitive to do that. And then it gets to the point where you're just going to keep that one. We're just going to move. We're going to open a second manufacturing, right? So this one will be, these following SKUs are going to be built here, and, we'll do another manufacturing facility here. So you end up with these, but that's also when you start making the decisions of 40,000. Let's talk about 500,000 square feet. And, this will be our headquarters, and this will be, that you kind of repurposing those locations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I didn't talk about the top, but just to explain the business to everybody, just because I think I kind of missed talking about that, kind of got right into it there. I got too excited. So, at the end of the day, what we provide is diagnostic software and hardware options to people to fix trucks quicker. But what we started doing is saying, okay, that's the tool. It tells you the code, doesn't tell you how to fix it. So we had to spin up another division of our company to build out repair information. So we build wiring diagrams and labor times and component guides and remove and replace instructions and fault code info. And then we just give it away free so we can sell more of this tool. And that was how our training got started. Well, let's just train them. That way they can buy more of our tool, and we'll package it together and create a differentiator. And our call center staff with diesel technicians and IT pros. So we can help people over the phone fix stuff. So kind of that thing we're going through that we've been talking about is, we kind of had that pivotal moment about a year and a half ago. We're like, man, that repair information that we built, that we give away free for everyone that becomes a customer, that's probably really good. And people already have their own tools from somebody else, but they would probably just buy just our repair information. So it took us a while to realize that. And, those are things we're starting to do now. So the evolution of the company isn't just selling that new kit and hardware to new customers. It's peeling off all those services that we surround with it, and saying, okay, that can be its own business model. We can have a whole new revenue stream here. And all those things are good for diesel laptops at the end of the day. So that's really the direction we're headed as a company, is trying to do that. And then the other thing is, I always tell people, like, look, I'm just a dumb truck repair guy that worked in a dealership for a while. I'm trying to figure out how to be a software company. So now it's bringing in the people that know. We got as far as we could, but now it's time, we're like, okay, let's get in real true product owners. Let's get in real true VP of engineering. Let's get in the right people that know what a software company and how this thing should look like.
Yeah.
So it's a constant evolution. You gotta keep pushing the limits on what your company can do. And that's been my mentality since the start.
I love that so much. And, again, these different stages of, this transformation of moving to the next step, and how it's never something small, man. Like these are big leaps that every time, and understanding that, like, if you're excited about that entrepreneurism, that these are big leaps. This is, every single one of these is hold your nose. Oh, there's another deep end. There's a bigger pool, I'm going even deeper. And then you're like, oh, it's the Mariana Trench. All right. Well,
yeah. And I didn't think that. I thought once we got bigger, I was like, oh man, there's more commas and more zeros here. The risk will get smaller the bigger we get. Right. And totally wrong. The risks just get bigger and bigger. Right. Like, so yeah, now it's not, $1,000 or $10,000 decisions. It's $1 million decisions.
Yeah.
So, it's like being in a casino and the stakes just keep getting bigger at the tables, and, you just got to keep making the right decisions. And that's been a tough thing for us. So we used to be, hey, this is Tyler's company. He just shoots from the hip and makes decisions, and let's go towards, hey, let's do some strategic planning and budgeting and analysis and figure out, should we go spend $1 million on that or not? Right. So, and that's tough for entrepreneurship. And I never understood before why some companies kind of got stuck at a certain level of revenue or size, and they never could grow it. I totally get it now, because it is a lot of people, not just the owner and the managers. Everybody has to shift their mindset, and you have to do things a different way to get to that next level. And that's a really difficult thing to do in a lot of situations.
Sure. And being willing to take that risk, to make that leap. It's not easy, and I think, in the beginning, it's just me and my family. And then it's, the handful of people that I know well, but you just said it yourself, you got 200 employees, right? Like, that decision is 200 families. That's, yep. I mean, not to put more stuff on you, right?
Yeah. No, it was funny. I had the other night, we were just doing some analysis on some of our products, and we have our own product called PF Diagnose, that it's software that hooks up to trucks and talks. And I'm like, man, that one program's generated $1 million in revenue. I'm like, really? I'm like, man, you know what? If I ever close up these laptops, I think I could just take that one thing and just sell and support that by myself and probably make some pretty good money here. But I'm like, I know myself. I can't do that. We gotta keep pushing it.
And that's okay for some people, right? Like I have met some entrepreneurs, and we've, I go in there and we're talking about their business, and like, hey, look, there was a guy, he had a pool cleaning company. And I talked about, okay, well, I know these other pool cleaning guys, they're kind of smaller. You could buy those out, put these together, increase the routes, no. I like my schedule. Yeah. I like how much I work, and I like how much I make, and I don't want to grow.
Yeah.
All I want is to get some of these expenses a little bit more under control, but I don't want to grow. I want to stay right where I'm at. Which is kind of hard for me sometimes to wrap my mind around,
It is for me too, but for a lot of people, that they're okay with that, right? That's they're comfortable with. They don't want the extra stress or risk or whatever it is. For me, it's always been the opposite. Cause I'm like, man, I know all the things we're doing now. I see where the future of truck repair and diagnostics is going. I truly believe, and I sound crazy, I tell people this, I really think Diesel Laptops has the opportunity to change the way people do their diagnostics and repair on commercial trucks.
Right.
And for the better, where it's more efficient for people and less downtime. So I look at that, I'm like, man, how many people have the opportunity to really go change their industry or change their niche or put their little dent in the universe, right? So I'm like, you know what? It's worth finding out. So for me, it's still about that.
I feel like you probably get some pushback from the dealerships early on, but when they start to realize that they're not losing a field technician for 6 hours to change a fuse, then you probably would get some more buy-in and get some, what's the word I'm looking for? People go out there and talk on your behalf. Diplomats.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. And it's funny. Some OEM truck dealerships and equipment dealerships, they really love us because they're a Freightliner dealer, but they want to work on all the other brands. Well, they can't go buy all the software from all those companies because they can't get it.
Right.
So they come to a company like Diesel Laptops, and we provide, here's the tools so you can now do more business in your shop. And then you have some other dealerships are like, man, you guys suck. You're allowing customers to do their own repairs and diagnostics. And I'm like, you know what? if the only reason people go to your business is because you're the only one in town, you have a bad business model. You're not a power company, right? Or an internet company, right? Like that's a bad business model. You're not going to make it long if you do that. And you see that divide. And, it's interesting in the equipment manufacturers, the OEM world, we've gotten plenty of letters from OEMs saying, we don't like you guys doing this, you're infringing on us, or doing this or doing that. We're not doing anything illegal over here. We're just giving people an option to not use you guys. And sometimes that upsets them. And in other cases, we've had some really big customers that bought a lot of, they buy hundreds of millions of dollars a year in equipment, and their manufacturers are complaining to them about diesel laptops and they shouldn't be working with us. And those customers are like, you know what? It's a better solution. It's more efficient. It saves us time. It saves us money. So if you want us to keep buying your equipment, you guys go figure out how to work with diesel laptops. So it's nice when you have the big customers out there that start pushing back and being like, no. This is a ship that sailed. You guys need to change your plan around here. So it's interesting to see how things are kind of changing in that whole model. But we'll see where it goes.
You're definitely showing that deep customer understanding and truly listening to the customer and answering that customer need. I think that for a lot of big companies, they sometimes lose that a little bit. They'll talk about it, but actually executing on that is sometimes a little bit trickier. The bureaucracy becomes what we answer to before the customer, right? And so it's interesting to hear from your end, kind of the same thing, like growing businesses are listening to the people that are buying the product.
Yeah. So again, it's like you're in my mind here, but every new employee has to come sit with me for like 15, 30 minutes, right? We just talk, and that's how I always ended is like, look, this was easy when it was for me. It was just me. All I had to deal with was, I got to talk to every customer. I knew everything going on. And now it's different. I don't, now I get net promoter scores and I get survey results. I don't get to talk to a lot of customers anymore.
Yeah.
But I can say this, I tell them all, like, talk to your manager. If you see continuing problems, comments, let your manager know, let me know. My email's open, but I still read through the daily chat logs on the website chats. I look at the Facebook comments. I look at the social media stuff. So I try to stay in tune as best I can to the ebb and flow and see what people think of us or don't think of us. And I think it's important as a company, you can't lose focus of that. You got to get your employees to realize, hey, if someone's asked if you hear the same question from 4 different customers, let's figure out how to answer that question before it becomes a question, or how to use it to close a deal, or maybe there's a product we need to make. And almost all the products we've come out with, people think they're my ideas. They're not. They're customers saying, I wish you guys had this. I'm like, man, that's a great idea. Like we're going to go build that. So it literally happened last week with something. So it's just got to have your ears open and look for opportunity when it's out there. People have problems and they're not looking for products. They're looking for solutions. And I think that's the part that a lot of people miss out on.
Well, and the other thing is that, yeah, absolutely. They're looking for solutions, not the product. So let's stop talking about your product. Tell me about how you solve a problem. The product is irrelevant, right? We haven't talked about your product as much as we've talked about the problems that you solve. That's all we've talked about here this whole time.
Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it's funny. So before us, if people wanted to sell diagnostic tools, people had sold them. They would drive out on site and they would go hook up the computer and they'd show the guy what it did. Then the guy would say, well, that's great. Go try this truck. It's different. Right. And they do that 3 or 4 times. Then they go in the office, maybe they close the deal or not. And they spend a whole day with one customer. Yeah. And we're like, man, we can never scale it this way. And we went through the whole mentality of we're going to do it a different way. And we're not going to do demos. We're not going to go on site. And we're going to sell these a different way. And really, that's exactly what it came down to is, we know what their problems are. I worked in that industry for 10 years. I know what your problems are. Let's just talk about what the solutions are and what we're going to do for you and give you some reassurances on what we're going to do if you choose to do business with us. And once you did that, that's what really opened the floodgate. Is our salespeople went from doing demos and driving around selling 4 or 5 units a month to sitting at their house and talking to people on the phone and the internet and selling 20 units a month. Wow. So you can always do things a different way if you just get that messaging a little bit different. And our best salespeople, they'll tell you their goal is to never even show the software, because as they say, it's irrelevant what it looks like. It's just the problem it's going to solve in your day to day.
Yeah. The other thing is that now you've gotten big enough that you actually have 2 sets of customers. You have the people buying your stuff and then the people making and selling your stuff.
Oh yeah.
You have 200 customers that walk into your building every day that you need to know. When you said that you sit down with every employee for 15 minutes, I think so. I actually have a book on leadership that I have written. And one of the things in there that I talk about is the one-to-one meeting and how absolutely critical that is to get to know the people that are on your team and why, what makes them tick. Why are they working for you? And that's an internal check and an external one as well. And I know it's lonely at the top, and I want to tell you, from an outsider point of view, that is so valuable and so important. And it's a huge testament to your character. Exceptionally well done to have that as a standing thing that you do with every employee.
Well, I appreciate it. And I go back to when it was just me and our first, a couple dozen employees. I mean, I got to interview each one. I did their first day of training. I brought them out to lunch. We'd even do like a group lunch for the department. Like, you get to know them, right? And, then all of a sudden you hit a certain size and people are walking by in the hallway. You're like, okay, is that an employee? Is it a spouse? Is it a vendor? Is it a customer? Who is this person? What do they do here? Right. So I'm like, they got to come in here and talk to me for a little bit. I need to know who they are and what they do and what's their background and where they're from. And I think it goes a long way on both sides of the fence. I need it as much as they need it as well. So I know that someone get kind of nervous. They come in here like, oh my God, why am I in the CEO's office? What's going on? But it works out.
Yeah. Well, eventually it also becomes a place where, a lot of folks talk about an open door policy. They don't really live one. And so you kind of, you have to force it in the beginning to the point where that mentality of the CEO's office, like the principal's office, where when it's no longer, I don't just go there when things are bad, right? I can go there and have a conversation with Tyler and tell him, hey, this is what I'm seeing, because you start to get big enough that, there's too many layers between you and the person actually, in that operations role on that bottom, making something. You're not going to hear about the problems, right?
Yeah. And what surprised me is how many employees friended me on Facebook. I was like, are you sure you want your boss following you on Facebook? But I guess they want to see what I'm up to too. I guess they can see pictures of my kids, I guess. But it's nice because you're able to have those conversations when you see them in the hallway. You can call them by their first name. How to go, what you do with your daughter this weekend,
yeah.
You can have those conversations. So it does make things a lot easier. And I think they trust you a lot more once you can get to know them a little bit, or they can get to know you a little bit, or they get a little glimpse into your life.
Well, I want you to know how valuable that is. So some years ago, I was a military officer. I was a platoon leader, second lieutenant in the 82nd Airborne. And I was walking with a private. I don't remember why, but he was an E4, so a specialist at the time. And we passed by this colonel who 2 years prior had been the battalion commander. Battalion has about 1,000 troops. Okay. So now he's got a brigade, a couple thousand soldiers in it, or something like that. Anyway, he passed by, looks at this kid and was like, they salute. And he goes, Tim, how you doing? And he's like, I'm doing good, sir. Now, the fact that he knew his first name was a big deal because we were our last name on the.
Yeah.
And he says to him, how's your kid? He should be 2-3 years old now, right? And so they have this little conversation. This colonel remembered these little details about a kid who was a private, right? So he goes on his way. We salute, we walk off. And as we're walking off, the kid looks at me and goes, I would go to hell and back for that man.
Yeah.
Right? Like that, just the fact that he knew, like he cared, he showed that he cared about one of several thousand people, put him in the mindset of, I will do absolutely anything for that man if he asks me to.
Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to culture, and culture is a really tough thing to have in your organization. And people always ask, where's culture come from? Comes from the top, man.
Yeah.
You can have all the printed materials and posters up in the building, but it comes down from the top, right? What those executives and senior leadership's doing and the way they're interacting and not the things they're saying, the things they're doing are two different things oftentimes. And that people read off that and they feed off of that. And those are the people you want in your organization. And those are the people that there's just such a dramatic impact when you have a culture like that, with people sticking around and the work productivity and the way they cheer for your company. I've had employees steal from us. We've had employees had to get arrested before. We've had all kinds of horrible things happen, but I know there's a certain group of employees. I mean, they trust me as much as I trust them, and I give them a lot of trust. So you have to have that in an organization.
Love that so much. So talk is cheap. Actions are really where the rubber meets the road. Right. So Tyler, if somebody's listening to this and they want to know more about either diesel laptops, or they were so impressed by your leadership, they want to come work for you, how do they find you? Where do they get a hold of you, and how can they buy your product?
Yeah, I mean, if they just Google Diesel laptops, they'll probably pop up in 100 places, but diesellaptops.com. And as I said earlier, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I post, once or twice their week. I try to make a nice high quality post, talk about what's going on personally or at work. So just find Tyler Robertson on LinkedIn. Hopefully I'll show up on there somewhere in the first page or two. But yeah, no, I love meeting people. Just had someone reach out the other day on LinkedIn. They're starting a business. They just hit me up. Hey, I got some questions I want to ask about some stuff. I'm like, you know what? That's cool, man. Just here's my Calendly link. Let's have a conversation. Maybe I can help you a little bit. So I'm all about trying to find ways to help motivate, inspire, educate. That's a big part of what I'm trying to accomplish here at Diesel Laptops.
Absolutely. I love watching it, and I love seeing the growth here. And I was really impressed by, all your content and posts and seeing how you guys just grown. It's really exciting. And I want to thank you for taking the time and, chatting with me and, the people that are going to listen to this. And just thanks so much. And thanks for, the way you treat people is that's really, we need a lot more of that out there. So keep it up.
Well, I appreciate it. And I got to say this was by far the quickest hour of my day so far. I feel like I just started talking to you. So thank you very much for inviting me on the show.
Awesome. Thanks.